Every problem you face in life seems different on the surface. Anxiety, loneliness, insecurity, fear of failure, overthinking. But beneath them all, there is one quiet force pulling the strings. You care too much about what other people think of you. This concern shapes your choices, controls your emotions, and slowly determines how you live your life. And most of the time, you don't even realize it's happening. In this episode, we explore ideas inspired by the book The Courage to be Disliked, written by Japanese philosopher Ichiro Kishimi and author Fumitake Koga. Their message is uncomfortable, almost confrontational, yet deeply freeing. They argue that unhappiness is not something that happens to us. It is something we choose, often without knowing why. And the key to happiness is not confidence, success, or approval, but courage. The courage to be disliked. According to the authors, what we call internal worry doesn't truly exist. Worry is never isolated within the self. Even when you think your anxiety is private, it almost always involves other people, how you are seen, whether you are accepted. Every fear carries the shadow of someone else's opinion. In that sense, most psychological suffering is social suffering. Kishimi and Koga build their philosophy on the ideas of Alfred Adler, a psychologist who believed that human beings are not driven by past causes, but by present goals. Adler rejected the idea that personality is fixed or determined by childhood alone. Instead, he believed that the mind, emotions, and behavior work together toward a purpose, even if that purpose is unconscious. From this perspective, who you are is not something you discovered. It is something you chose. Your habits, your emotional patterns, your way of relating to others form what Adler called a lifestyle, and this lifestyle exists because at some point you believed it was the best way to survive, belong, or avoid pain. This idea becomes clearer when we look at emotions. We often assume emotions just happen to us. Fear arrives. Anxiety strikes. Sadness overwhelms. But Adlerian psychology suggests something more uncomfortable. Emotions are tools. They serve goals. First, we decide what we want. Then we generate emotions that help us move toward that outcome. Consider someone who desperately wants a new job but becomes paralyzed with anxiety before the interview. They tell themselves they failed because they were too afraid. But Kishimi and Koga would argue that the anxiety itself served a purpose. The true goal was not getting the job. The true goal was avoiding the risk of rejection. Fear protected them from the possibility of failure by giving them a reason not to try. This framework also challenges how we think about trauma. The authors do not deny that painful experiences exist, but they reject the idea that trauma permanently defines who we are. Two people can experience similar suffering and live completely different lives. What matters is not what happened, but the meaning we assign to it. Experiences do not determine us. We determine ourselves through the goals we choose afterward. This leads to a difficult question. If happiness is within our control, why do so many people remain unhappy? Kishimi and Koga offer a surprising answer. Unhappiness can be a strategy. For some, it becomes a way to avoid responsibility, risk, and change. Chronic unhappiness often serves a purpose, especially in relationships. According to the authors, the single most important factor in happiness is the goal you set for your relationships with others. When you interact with people, you are usually aiming for one of two things: approval or contribution. And the path you choose determines the quality of your life. Unhappy people tend to make approval their main goal. They believe that being liked proves their worth, that praise equals goodness, that rejection means failure. Their self-esteem rises and falls with other people's reactions. On the surface, this may seem natural, but the authors argue it is deeply flawed. Approval always comes at a cost. When you live to meet expectations, you surrender your freedom. You begin to measure your life using someone else's standards. Praise is not kindness, it is judgment. And once you accept judgment, you are forced to obey the judge. The deeper problem is that approval is never fully within your control. No matter how kind, talented, or careful you are, some people will dislike you. When approval becomes impossible, many people don't let go of the goal. Instead, they change tactics. They stop trying. They convince themselves that something is fundamentally wrong with them, This belief protects them from risk, but traps them in hopelessness. Seeking approval also poisons relationships. When approval is the goal, life becomes a competition. If someone else succeeds, it threatens your value. If others shine, you feel diminished. This creates jealousy, resentment, and silent hostility. Support disappears. Comparison takes its place. There's another consequence. Approval seeking creates entitlement. When you give in order to be liked, you expect something in return. Gratitude, recognition, loyalty. When it doesn't come, resentment grows. What looked like kindness becomes a transaction, and relationships quietly rot under unspoken expectations. So, what is the alternative? Kishimi and Koga argue that happy people abandon approval as a goal and replace it with contribution. Instead of asking, "Do they like me?" they ask, "Am I useful?" Their happiness comes from believing that they contribute to the well-being of others, even in small ways. This does not mean self-sacrifice. True contribution is not martyrdom. It is not helping to be praised. It is helping because it brings meaning. When you feel useful, recognition becomes unnecessary. You no longer need permission to exist. You already know your value. This shift also transforms how you see yourself. Happy people believe that human worth is not earned. It exists by default. Simply being alive has value. Because of this, they can accept themselves even with flaws, mistakes, and limitations. Their self-worth does not disappear when they fail. They also stop viewing life as a competition. Another person's success does not threaten them. There are no winners and losers. Contribution is not limited. Someone else shining does not dim your light. Finally, happy people live in the present. They do not postpone happiness until some future achievement. They find meaning in the process, not just the outcome. They work toward goals, but they do not sacrifice their life for them. If life ended today, it would not feel wasted. The central message of this philosophy is simple and difficult. You will be disliked, no matter what you do. And freedom begins when you accept this. Happiness does not require universal approval. It requires the courage to live according to your values, even when others disapprove. In the end, the question is not whether people will judge you. They will. The real question is whether you will let those judgments decide how you live. Because the moment you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you finally become free enough to be yourself.